We're currently halfway through 2023, and in today's video, we're gonna go through every single book that I have read so far this year, even the ones I didn't finish. So stick around, we're gonna be talking about my favorites, we're gonna be talking about my least favorites, and you'll even be getting a look into my book journal that I like to keep. Hello, how are you? Sonnet here. I'm so happy to see you. Thanks for being here today. As I mentioned, we're going to be going through every single book I've read so far this year. That is 44 at the time of this video. And I don't want this video to be hours long, so I'm just going to be giving a quick synopsis of the story as well as my overall rating and my thoughts. Let's go ahead and get started. Hey everybody, Editing Sonnet here. I just realized while editing my video that my book journal does give some spoilers. There's a section here that says most memorable scene, and yeah, so I have omitted pages that have serious spoilers, but it's down here in the corner if you really don't want any kind of spoiler, or maybe this video is not for you. But I did just want to show some of the pages, but I didn't want you to be like, what, Sonnet? You just spoiled the book. We are starting 2023 off with a bang, and that is Lost Stars by Claudia Gray, which was my very first DNF of the year. Yes, the first book I read in 2023 I did not finish. Lost Stars is described as a Romeo and Juliet type of story that takes place during the events of the Star Wars movies, and I thought, great, that sounds awesome. And it was. I was listening to the audiobook, however, there are licensing issues when it comes to the audiobook, so the only way to listen to it is on this random website that I found that had split the audiobook up into sections. I thought to myself, fine, I'll listen to it while I can, and then as long as I don't close the tab, I shouldn't lose my spot. I closed the tab by accident, I lost my spot, and I just did not have the motivation to figure out where I left off, so I just DNF'd the book. Now, I was enjoying the book, so I do plan to revisit it later, just I might have to buy the paperback to avoid any issues in the future. Next up, we have The House Witch, a cozy fantasy by Delemhach. I gave this one 2 stars. This is about Finley. He is a witch and he goes to work in a castle and everybody gets drunk. I made it through a quarter of this book and was really enjoying it, and then about halfway through, I was just not having a good time. I thought it was too long. I thought it was extremely boring. It just wasn't for me. Next is Fair Isles and Fortunes by Nancy Warren. This is book number 6 in the Vampire Knitting Club series. It is a cozy mystery series that follows Lucy, a knitting shop owner who has a group of vampires that live under her knitting shop, and they help her solve cozy mysteries, and it was great. Number 4 is our first 5-star book of the year, and it's also our introduction to the cryometer. I cry a lot, especially during books, and so I thought it might be kind of fun to keep track at how many books actually do make me cry. The first one is The Girl Who Drank the Moon by Kelly Barnhill. This follows Zan, a witch who discovers a discarded baby in the woods and accidentally feeds her moonlight, giving this little baby, whom she names Luna, powers. It is a very grandmother-esque type of relationship that Luna and Zan have, and as someone who was very close to my grandmother, this one hit all of the right notes, and I cried, and I love Glurk more than anything. Number 5 is The Tea Shop Society, a graphic novel by Kay O'Neill. I gave this one 4 stars. This follows Greta. She is learning the lost art form of tea dragons. They're cute little dragons with tea leaves growing on them. She works in a tea shop. She has a cute little friend named Mehmet, and she is learning the ins and outs of the tea shop by Eric and Ezekiel, the tea shop owners. It's really cute and the artwork is really good. Shortly after I read The Tea Dragon Society, I read The Tea Dragon Festival, another graphic novel by Kay O'Neill. This one follows Rin and Aiden, a 80-year-old sleeping dragon, as they go on their little adventure. I gave this one 5 stars. You actually get more into the backstory of Ezekiel and Eric from the first graphic novel, and I thought it was so sweet. Number 7, our very first TJ Klune book of the year, that is Under the Whispering Door. This was a 5-star for me and a cryometer for sure. This is the story of Hugo, and Hugo owns a tea shop, and he helps people who have passed on go through the door. That's all I'm gonna say. This book had me sobbing uncontrollably. I loved it so much. Number 8 is Snow and Rose by Emily Winfield Martin. This was a 5-star book, a cryometer for sure. It is a middle grade fairy tale. It is a retelling of the fairy tale Snow White and Rose Red, and I thought it was so whimsical, so magical, so sweet. I loved everything about this book, and I will definitely be reading this one to my kiddos sooner rather than later. Next up is The Cottingley Secret by Hazel Gaynor. This is a historical fiction about the Cottingley fairies. I gave this one 4 stars. I thought it was really sweet. It's a little slow, but I wanted to read a book about fairies that was really magical, and considering half of this book is a true story, I loved it. Number 10 is probably my biggest surprise of the year, and that is Sing Me Forgotten by Jessica S. Olsen. This is a young adult fantasy that is a gender bend of the Phantom of the Opera. That's all I'm going to say. I loved this. I didn't think I was going to, as a gigantic fan of the musical and as well as the book by Gaston Leroux. I did not expect much from this one, but I was pleasantly surprised. It was dark, it was mysterious, it was beautiful, and it hit all the right notes. Number 11, 5 stars, The Song of Achilles. Do I need to say anything else about this book? It was a cryometer book for me. This is about Achilles and Patroclus and their relationship, and it is perfect in every way. Number 12, A Curious Beginning by Deanna Raybourn. This is the first installment of the Veronica Speedwell series. People love this book. I gave this one 2 stars. This is like a historical fiction type of book. It takes place in the late 1800s. You follow Veronica Speedwell, a lepidopterist, and there's a mystery about her and something, and then there's another guy in a circus. I did not enjoy this one. I did not enjoy Veronica Speedwell as a character at all, and it just wasn't for me. Next up, we have A Man Called Uva, a contemporary fiction by Fredrik Backman. This was a 4-star read for me and a cryometer book for sure. This is basically about a curmudgeonly old grumpy man, Uva, and he gets new neighbors and has to learn to be a little less grumpy. Now, this book has a lot of heart. It is a feel-good book in a way, but this one also deals with some pretty heavy topics. So if you are wanting a good cry, but if you also want a heartfelt type of story, check out the trigger warnings first and then pick up this one. Number 14, Garlic and the Vampire, a graphic novel by Bree Paulsen. I loved this. 5 out of 5 stars. This is about a nervous little garlic bulb who has to go and vanquish a vampire. I thought this was so cute, so sweet, and it had amazing anxiety representation in it. Definitely recommend you pick this one up. Shortly after I finished Garlic and the Vampire, I read Garlic and the Witch, the second to the series by Bree Paulsen. This was a 4-star for me. I thought it was cute. It has Garlic dealing with growing up, and although I didn't love it as much as Garlic and the Vampire, I still had a good time reading this one. Next, we have Book Lovers by Emily Henry. This was a 4-star book for me. It's a romance that follows Nora, a book publicist, and her enemies to lovers relationship with a book editor named Charlie. And what I loved so much about this one is this book actually really focuses on Nora and her relationship with her sister Libby. They go on vacation together to the town where their favorite book is based off of, and it is really sweet. I loved it so much that I actually planned a vacation with my sister. Number 17, Remarkably Bright Creatures by Shelby Van Pelt. This is a literary fiction about an elderly woman named Tova who befriends a gigantic Pacific octopus named Marcellus, and then there's a 30-year-old man named Cameron who gets kind of twisted up in their whole thing too. I gave this one 5 stars when I initially read it. It's now a 4-star read for me. I still love it, and it is definitely one that made me cry. Next up, Half a Soul by Olivia Atwater. This is a fantasy romance that I gave 4.25 stars to. It is essentially a Howl's Moving Castle meets Bridgerton type of book. You have Dora. She gets half of her soul stolen by a fairy when she is very young. And then as she gets older, she meets the Lord Sorcier, Elias, and he tries to help her get her soul back. It's a clean romance. It's really cute. Number 19 is my favorite book so far this year. Another 5-star by TJ Klune, The House in the Cerulean Sea. I loved it. 1 for the cryometer. I did not want it to end. I cried because the book was over. You know the story. This is about Linus Baker. He is a social worker. He goes to an orphanage run by Arthur Parnassus, and living there are 6 dangerous children. This book is all about found family. It is all about understanding our differences that make us special. It is all about learning to not judge a book by its cover. It is so sweet. And if this were to ever be made into a movie, it would have the best soundtrack of all time. I mean, I can hear the Sam Cooke already. This is also the only book that I talked so much about. After I read it, my husband was like, fine, I'll read it. Next, we have Smoke Signal. This is a short story by Marie Benedict and Kate Quinn. It is about Agatha Christie and her friend Isla Kendall and how they solved codes in a park. It was really interesting. I gave it 3 stars. I thought it was fascinating, but because it was a short story, I was left with a little bit more questions than answers, but I guess that just means I might have to read the book about the Bletchley Park codes later on. 21 is Mooncakes, a graphic novel by Suzanne Walker. I gave this one 2.5 stars. This follows Nova, a young witch, and her friend Tam, who is a werewolf, and they've got this little romance thing going on, and they have to work together to stop a greater evil. This one was okay. I felt the story was lacking a little bit. However, I think that the diversity and the representation in this graphic novel is fantastic. Number 22, a children's classic, Mary Poppins by P.L. Travers. I gave this one a 3.75. I liked it. I love Mary Poppins the movie, and so I was like, I'm gonna listen to the book. It was very magical. It was very cute and funny and silly, but my biggest complaint with the Mary Poppins book is Mary Poppins is a real grump. She's kind of a crank, and I'm just like, lighten up, Mary Poppins. Number 23, another 5-star by TJ Klune, another for the cryometer. This one, In the Lives of Puppets. This one just recently came out. I was so excited to pick this one up, and I understand that I'm in the minority. I absolutely loved this, but from what I see, not everyone's digging it as much. This is essentially a Pinocchio meets Wizard of Oz type of story with robots. It was full of heart. I loved every moment of it, and I was laughing constantly. Next up, probably my favorite graphic novel of the year, and that is Pumpkinheads by Rainbow Powell. I loved it, 5 stars. This graphic novel follows 2 teenagers as they are working their last night at the pumpkin patch before they go off to college next year. They're having a cute little adventure, and it is so full of all of those autumn, Halloween, fall vibes that you and I love. So I will definitely be rereading this one in the next couple of months. Number 25 is a book that I wasn't going to count, but both my Goodreads and my Storygraph counted it, so whatever. Here it is, The Lord Sorcier by Olivia Atwater. This is basically a prequel novella to Half a Soul, and it's essentially how Elias and Albert became friends, their time during the Napoleonic War. wars. I gave this one 3 stars. I thought it was very interesting. I love war stories. It was interesting to learn their history. Next up, The Lonely Hearts Book Club by Lucy Gilmore. This is a literary fiction that I absolutely loved. I gave it 5 stars when I initially read it. It has died down a little bit, but not by much. I would say it's a 4.5 right now. This is essentially about a book club filled with a bunch of unlikely members. You have a young gal who's not happy with her engagement. You have an old, curmudgeonly, grumpy library patron. You have a middle-aged mother who is really struggling with her relationship with her teenage daughter, and other characters who are important. And they just get together and they talk about books, and you feel the love and passion that they have. Number 27 is Crumbs by Danny Sterling. This is a graphic novel, and I gave it 2.75 stars. It's cute. It's about Ray and Laurie. They're magical people. They're growing up. They have their goals, and they have their cute little romance. I thought the ending was really cute. It just didn't leave a lasting impression. I pretty much forgot all about this one as soon as I closed the book. Next up, Legends and Lattes by Travis Baldree. You know about this one. It's a cozy fantasy about Liv, an orc who doesn't want to orc no more, and she opens a coffee shop. It's so sweet, it is so cute, and you want to drink coffee and eat cinnamon rolls the whole time. This was a 4.75 star for me. I couldn't quite get it to 5 stars, but I still loved it. Number 29 is another surprise, Shady Hollow by Janu Black. This is a cozy mystery series, all with woodland creatures, and they are adorable. They are so unique and interesting, and I loved it. I loved it so much. I gave it 4 stars when I initially read it, but the more I think about it, it's almost a 5 star for me. I loved this book, and I cannot wait to read more in this series. Number 30, And Yet, Poems by Kate Bear. This was a 5 star for me. It was a very fast read. It's just a little tiny collection of poems by Kate Bear, and I cried. Another for the cryometer. They really resonated with me, especially as a person who is a mother, as a wife, and as someone who struggles with self-esteem and self-image. They hit home. Next up, we have another one of my favorites from the year, Anne of Green Gables by L.M. Montgomery. I'm not going to go too much into this one. You've seen all of my views of this. 5 stars. It's about an orphan, Anne Shirley, her life in Green Gables. I loved it. I cried. This book is everything to me. Next, we have another graphic novel, Heartstopper by Alice Oseman. I gave this one 3 stars. This one was recommended to me by a friend, and it is an LGBT story of Charlie and Nick and their budding relationship. It was very cute. It was very sweet. I really enjoyed it. Next up, Keeper of Enchanted Rooms by Charlie and Holmberg. This is a fantasy, and I didn't love this one. I gave it 2 stars. This is about a man who inherits a magical house, and this woman who works for this company that helps people with magical houses, and there's a villain. I thought it was so boring. I just really didn't care. And to be honest, I like a clean romance, but this romance in this book was so clean, it was pretty much non-existent. Next up, I had to do it. I had to do it. Fourth Wing by Rebecca Yarros. This is a fantasy romance, and I feel like from what I've seen, you fall into 2 groups. You either love this book or you hate this book. And well, when it comes to my opinion, I love this book. Oh my gosh, 5 out of 5 stars. I loved it. Yes, the writing is very juvenile and there are issues, but I just had so much fun with it that I am willing to overlook all of that. And those dragons, I loved it. I cannot wait for the second one to come out in November. Yes. Number 35, Howl's Moving Castle by Diana Lynn Jones. This is a middle grade fantasy. You've probably heard about this book. I liked it. I gave it 3.5 stars. Now, I have never seen the movie, so this was my first introduction to the story, and basically it's about Sophie, a young girl who gets cursed by a witch and is turned into an old hag. I liked it. I thought it was really cute. I thought it was very magical. I wanted to love this one more, but I did listen to the audiobook. I really disliked the narrator of this audiobook so much that it ruined the rating for me. Next we have Anne, an adaptation of Green Gables, sort of, by Kathleen Gross. This is a graphic novel. I've talked about this one before too. It was really cute. In my review, I said it was a 3-star, but on my story graph, it actually says that it's a 3.5 stars. So apparently I liked it more than I thought I did. But it's basically a retelling of Anne of Green Gables. It is a modern retelling and it's really cute. Next up, we have our next DNF of the year, which really makes me sad. This is All of the Young Men by Ruth Cocker Burks. I was recommended to this one by a friend as well. This is the memoir of Ruth and how she became an activist during the late 80s during the AIDS crisis. This would probably be a 4 to 5 star read for me if I could have finished it. To be 100% honest, I was sobbing by the 4th page into this book, and once I got about halfway through, I just couldn't anymore. I was not in the right headspace to read this one. I just had to put this down. I do recommend you look into this one. Just be aware that it is very heavy, it is very sad, but very hopeful at the same time. Next we have Seance Tea Party by Ramina Yee. This one is so cute, a graphic novel that I gave 4 stars to. Loved it. This follows Laura. She befriends a ghost in her house named Alexa, and the story is all about the struggles of growing up and growing old and friendships. It was very sweet. Highly recommend it. Number 39 are actually 2 novellas, but the audiobook that I listened to squished them together to make one audiobook, and that is Silver in the Wood and Drowned Country by Emily Tesh. These are fantasy novellas about a green man type of character named Tobias, and he meets a handsome man, Henry Silver. These novellas are very atmospheric. If you want to be transported to a dark, cool, mossy forest and really feel that atmosphere, I definitely recommend these 2 novellas. Now, I rated Silver in the Wood 4 stars, and then I rated Drowned Country 3 stars. I did enjoy it. It didn't have quite the same atmosphere as Silver in the Wood did, so it got a little lower of a rating for me. So together, this whole audiobook, I averaged it out to 3.5 stars. Next up, we have Happy Place by Emily Henry. I had to. It's everywhere. And you know what? I gave it 4 stars. I loved it. I might be in the minority, but I do like this one more than book lovers, and I loved Harriet and Win. Essentially, this is a story of Harriet and Win. They were engaged and then they broke up, but they didn't tell their friends. Now they're on vacation with their friends and they have to kind of pretend to still be together. That way they don't ruin their friend's vacation. I see a lot of criticism about Harriet's decisions at the end of the book. I am not one of those. I agree with everything that she did, and she was able to find her happy place, and I applaud that for her. I also see a lot of criticism about Win as a character. Don't understand those either. I loved Win. I thought he was fantastic, and he reminded me a lot of my husband, and so I really felt for their relationship. Number 41, Call Us What We Carry by Amanda Gorman. These are poems, 4.5 stars for me, another for the cryometer as well. Not much to say here. Amanda Gorman is an amazing poet, and what I love so much about these poems is I learned so much while reading these. If you like poetry, definitely pick this one up. Number 42 is Nightlights by Lorena Alvarez. I just picked this one up at the library, but I will be buying this one for myself, most definitely. The rating on this one is complicated. The story is 3 stars for me, but overall, I do give this graphic novel 5 stars. Let me explain. The story follows Sandy. She is a young artist, and you also meet her new sinister friend, Morphe, who has a very unhealthy fascination with Sandy's drawings. The story is interesting, but it is overall 3 stars to me because it is very short. When I first read this one, I stopped, I closed the cover, I thought about it for a minute, then I immediately picked it back up and opened it up again. It is only 53 pages, and I read this the second time in 10 minutes. I thought the story was a little short. I wanted a lot more from the story. However, the reason why this graphic novel gets 5 stars from me is because these illustrations are without a doubt the most beautiful illustrations I have ever seen in a graphic novel. I love them. I love these illustrations so much. It boosts a rating from 3 stars all the way up to 5 stars. So just keep that in mind. If you're not as into the art aspect of graphic novels, you might not enjoy this one as much. But if you love some beautiful artwork, holy cow, definitely pick this one up. Number 43 is The Wishing Game by Meg Schaefer. This is a contemporary fiction, and I gave it 1.5 stars. Without a doubt, my least favorite book I have read so far this year. I wanted to love this. This is essentially a Charlie and the Chocolate Factory type of story that surrounds a writer of a beloved children's series, and he stops writing for some time. Then one day he writes a new book to the series, but there's only one in existence. And he decides to hold a contest and invite 4 people to his crazy island to try and win the rights to that one copy of his book. Maybe it's because I read this one so recently. I just get so angry when I think about this book, and it's because I wanted to love it. I wanted to love it so much, but I just didn't. I did not like Lucy, the main character, at all, and I pretty much disagreed with everything she said. The only thing I liked about this book was there was a raven named Thurl. And if you understand that reference, that's great, but I bet most people won't. Lastly, number 44, The Long Way to a Small Angry Planet, a sci-fi by Becky Chambers. I gave this one 4 stars. I loved it. I thought it was really great. This is essentially a space opera that is not a non-stop sci-fi adventure. It is definitely more character driven, and you follow a very diverse motley crew cast of characters, and you explore gender and society norms, relationships. I loved it. It was very cozy. Can't wait to read more. Well, that was all 44 books that I have read so far this year, as well as a look into my book journal. If you are interested, I got this one off of Amazon. This is the journal from the YouTuber A Clockwork Reader here on YouTube. Check out Hannah's channel. It is fantastic. And definitely check out getting the journal. It is wonderful. Highly recommend it. But that does it for me today. Thank you so much for being here. Tell me, what books are you currently reading? What's been your favorite? What's been your least favorite? What are you looking forward to? I'll see you all a little later. Bye.